On today's podcast, we sit down with Andreas Katsambas from Chartmetric, the platform that's become the gold standard for music analytics around the world. We explore how Chartmetric transformed from a simple app designed to track the rise of BTS into an essential tool for labels, artists, and managers navigating the modern music landscape. Andreas shares the biggest industry challenges, the power of social media engagement, and reveals the insider data behind artist discovery in a world where over 100,000 tracks are being released every single day. Want to know which global markets are on the rise? Curious how data and the human touch come together to build legendary careers? We cover it all. Plus, his essential advice for artists ready to break through. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight.
Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we're excited to welcome Andreas Katsambas from Chartmetric, the industry's leading music analytics platform that everyone's talking about. Andreas gives us an inside look at how Chartmetric is helping artists, labels, and music professionals navigate the ever-changing data-driven landscape of today's modern music industry. We deep dive into how data and analytics are shaping artist discovery and development, why social media engagement is now more important than ever, and how emerging markets from Brazil to India are influencing global trends. Andreas also shares valuable advice for artists looking to build careers in today's competitive industry. Insights you definitely don't want to miss. So, if you want to learn how to leverage data to grow your music career and discover what it really takes to stand out in the modern music ecosystem, stay tuned. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey, Insiders! Are you an aspiring musician, artist, band, or future music business professional looking to take your career to the next level? Well, look no further. At MUBUTV, we offer personalized career counseling and coaching designed specifically for folks like you.
Imagine having both of us by your side, guiding you through every step of your music journey. Our sessions are tailored to meet your unique needs, focusing on critical aspects of your music career, such as refining your songs, defining your artist story, identifying your target audience, and enhancing your social media presence, just to name a few.
Whether you're just starting out or looking to elevate your existing career, we've got you covered. Our comprehensive approach ensures you get insights on everything from live shows to branding and marketing strategies. We understand that every artist is unique. That's why our coaching is personalized just for you.
And here's the best part. We offer flexible coaching packages that fit any budget. Choose from individual sessions ranging from 30 to 90 minutes, or save with our discounted 4-session packages. Experience custom sessions designed to enhance your music career, with opportunities for greater savings when you choose bundled sessions. Investing in your musical journey has never been more accessible.
Imagine the clarity and direction you'll gain after just one session. The feedback on your songs, the strategies to grow your audience, and the confidence to perform live, all tailored just for you.
So why wait? Don't let uncertainty hold you back. Join us for your free 15-minute discovery call at book.mubutv.com for a transformative coaching experience that will elevate your music career. That's book.mubutv.com.
Hi, this is Music Supervisor Stephen Gizicki, and you're listening to the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured guest is Andreas Katsambas from Chartmetric. This was a fascinating conversation, and I'm so glad, we haven't had someone from this world on the show yet. This is a new platform. This is an analytics platform and a very, very sophisticated, well-respected one within the music industry. All the labels and everybody uses this. I mean, for years, people always talked about how Billboard was the Bible because of the charts. They use that term. And now
Chartmetric is kind of the Bible of analytics for artists and for music companies. Yeah.
And it's analyzing data from many, many more points, which is a very interesting thing. One of the things that I thought was the most fascinating about the conversation that we had with him, among many, and why, I think everybody's going to really find this an interesting discussion, is because he talks about the global market. We have spoken on this show many times, Eric, that, the globalization of music, that the greatest growth that the music industry is going to see over the next 3 to 5 years is going to come from outside the United States.
The international markets, yeah.
Absolutely. And he spoke about, places like Brazil, like India, how they are really going to rise up to really having global impact, and how he is seeing that in terms of what Chartmetric is showing as far as consumption, as far as interest, as far as, streaming patterns go for a multitude of artists.
Yeah, what are the other areas too? And, this is not to knock Chartmetric or anybody that's in this space with analytics or anything, but I thought what was interesting was that he talked about that music remains the core. No matter how many analytic data points they're analyzing, music still remains the core. No data set can replace the power and emotional connection of great music. Using data to validate and enhance, not dictate creative decisions, which I think it's almost like a roadmap for you to kind of know, are you going in the right direction? But I think at the end of the day, it will not replace music as a vehicle.
Absolutely. As our great friend Don
Yes,
Grierson,
just thinking that.
Said, it all begins with the songs.
Right.
And it's still, if you don't have great songs, none of this
means anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And with that, insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation from Muse Expo 2025 with Andreas Katsambas.
Andreas, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Thank you for coming. Chartmetric provides a wealth of data from streaming platforms, radio, concerts, and much more. What was the inspiration to form it?
Great question. So the founder and CEO, Sancho, he's actually here today as well because he likes being at conferences, dealing directly with the users. He was a big fan of BTS back in 2015. And he realized that the band was getting attention outside of Korea, which wasn't the norm back then. K-pop wasn't a thing. Yes, it was called pop in Korea, as you can imagine. And he built a quick app to see what kind of playlists they were getting outside of Korea. He showed it to some friends, and they said, this is a viable tool. You can definitely build this on a more business scale. So he took that and just ran with it. And he quit his job in 2015, had the first version of Chartmetric 2017, and the rest is history.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
Andreas, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I wanted to ask you, you sit at a great vantage point in this business with Chartmetric. What is the current landscape telling you about where we're at in the music industry?
Amazing question. So this is my 4th year with the company. I come from the music world, and I work with many artists. So the way to find the right pivots for an artist, I just use data. Sales, social engagement, analytics, playlisting. And yes, I was a client and a user of Chartmetric before I joined. So looking at data, and when I joined the company, I told Sang, there's no competition for data except people not knowing how to use it, meaning education is the number one element. So I spent a lot of time educating industry professionals and artists how to understand and read data. We actually work with universities now. We have training sessions. We do collaborations with publications. And I've seen the change in people using the data. Data doesn't give you all the answers. It just helps. It's a tool. If you're releasing and developing an artist on a global scale, you always work with limited resources. Time being one, finances being another one, where to push and promote. So you use data to see what's working, what's connecting, and you build from there. So it helps you get more efficient and more effective. The other thing we realized, music is global. We have 12 million artists in our system now, 130 million tracks, and according to Spotify, over 100,000 uploads on Spotify on a daily basis. So how do you keep up? It's impossible to listen to everything. If you try to listen to the music that's out there, it's going to take 400 years. So how do you do it? Algorithms, playlists, use of data, of course, on the back end, but on the forefront, you can do some of the data points as well and pivot from there very quickly. So it helps you deal with the globalization, the complexity, and in some cases, the very, very high volume of what's out there right now.
Chartmetric has emphasized that data shouldn't be the sole driver in decisions like signing an artist or releasing new music. How do you strike that balance between using data insights and maintaining the creative human element that often defines successful careers?
Yes, exactly. Well, I do come from the music world, and the reason I got into music, I love music. It speaks to me in a way that no other form out there does. And it connects people, in an amazing way. Like, imagine going to a live show, watching an artist, how the whole crowd and the artist just becomes one. Data doesn't replicate that. It validates, it helps you get some answers. Music should be at the core. So what I usually suggest, let's say you're an A&R and you're looking to find the next talent. You come across an artist that you love, 100%, go for it. But use some of the data point to understand that artist better. What's their audience? What's their top market? What's working for them? What's not working? If it's a brand new artist, kind of look at other similar artists, take their success stories and build from there. Why? If there's 100,000 songs getting uploaded on a daily basis, the problem is not getting the music out there, it's getting someone to listen to it, and then connect with them, build an audience for the long term, develop your career. If you do it in one country, how do you go to the next one? If you do it in one platform, how do you go to the next one? So all these key answers, hopefully data can help you with that. But music, always at the core.
Andreas, Chartmetric is recognized as the gold standard in music analytics. What do you believe sets Chartmetric apart, and how does your team maintain this edge as new technologies and competitors emerge?
That's so nice to hear, actually, the gold standard. I'm going to start using that. Very, very cool. I should get my gold medal at one point somewhere as well. But yeah,
Yes.
Thanks for doing that. So Sang, he's a software engineer at heart. So he built the product amazing from day one. And he's a person that's going to go out, like he's at the conference today talking to a lot of our users or just random people to say hi. He collects the feedback and he works to improve and make the product better. I'm not a product person myself. I come from music, but when I first saw Chartmetric in 2017, I was blown away. And that was the early days. Now, 7 years later or 8 years later, it's such an amazing platform. So we collect feedback, we keep improving, we do updates on a daily basis. I mean, if you see the updates we do on a daily basis, it's insane. Trying to bring more data, trying to make things more accurate, try to make it complete. But at the end of the day, it's bringing value to the users, which is the industry professionals and the artists. From my end, being someone that comes from the music world, I look at the platform and I take those learnings and I pass it on to industry professionals. Why? In some ways, I speak their language. So I understand data, and I also understand music. So I kind of bring that as well. And like I said, educating. Education is key. So when you see a spike, you explain that to our clients, how to understand it, what to do from there, where to go from there as well. So it gives a lot of validation, it gives a lot of answers, a lot of insights, a lot of analytics. And the more you use it, the easier it gets as well. So, yes, there's other companies that do what we do, but I think not on the level we are at this point.
You've touched on this, but I'm curious to go deeper with it, is how have major industry players like labels and managers responded to Chartmetric's analytics platform? And have they made requests for new types of data and analytics since you launched?
I'm going to answer your second part first.
Okay.
We get requests all the time.
All right.
Why? There's just so much out there. So it's amazing when I go see one of our users and I said, hey, last time I was here, you just wanted to see more data from this platform. Guess what? We have it. They get excited and then they say, great, but what about this platform now? So there's always a need and a demand for just more and more data. Why? Just so much out there. So people need answers, or in some cases, Chartmetric has millions of data. Sometimes they come and say, can we integrate some of our data into what you have as well to get more and deeper insights? So we see that a lot all the time. And we do take feedback from our users to come up with new features on a daily basis. But it's amazing. When I sit with anyone, a client, a user, or someone in the music, I always say, what's your challenge? They tell me that, and sometimes I say, great, let me show you what we have, and hopefully we're going to figure it out for you. So I always ask, the person sitting on the other end of the table what they're dealing with and see if we can help them with that. So that's always my go-to with anyone.
Yeah, I would imagine, because people's needs are different. Some want data on streaming, some want data on other kinds of analytics besides the people. Some are also at different levels of their career, and that may require different requests from you than a new beginning artist.
100%. I do have some unique use cases. I got a call from an immigration attorney. He says, I submitted my artist for a visa to perform at South by Southwest. I got denied. I was told there's no audience for them in the US. They've never been in the US before. I said, let's check their profile in Chartmetric. I opened it, picked up everything that had a US audience. We took screenshots. He submitted in his follow-up application, and they got a visa to come to perform to the US. I never expected.
What a crazy use case for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. So you never know. So we present the data in some cases in a high level, but also granular way, and allow the user to, utilize it for their own needs, and exactly like you said.
Andreas, speaking of data, Chartmetric aggregates social media data alongside streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. How does social media engagement influence your algorithms for identifying potential hit songs or artists? And do you think social media metrics are becoming more and more important?
Social media is a key nowadays for artist development, more so than I believe any other way of promotion. I mean, back in the day, and you can see how old I am, there was radio, MTV, go on tour, that was it. You release a few singles, do a bunch of dates, and then 2 years later, you kind of, repeat the cycle with a new album. Now you can release a single, especially if you're Bruno Mars, and within 90 days, you have 1 billion streams. Why? Building base, audience, social media. If you have, like Selena Gomez, 500 million followers on your Instagram, and you make a post instantly, you're going to get crazy reaction on a new single. Regardless if it's Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon, it doesn't matter because the base is there. Same with a lot of the K-pop bands. So building up your audience now via social media, it's the way for an artist to develop a long-term, successful campaign. There's no other way to do that because you have a one-to-one interaction with your base. You can send a message directly to them and they get it instantly. When did that happen in the past when it comes to music? Never. You relied on other ways to promote it, but now it allows you to build that. Engagement is very key, meaning if you do a post, you need to see people reacting, and that's engagement, knowing that if you ask them to check out your new song when it comes out, they are going to follow suit with that. So engagement is very key all around. And it's the same with Spotify. You may get on one of the biggest playlists on Spotify, New Music Friday, Pop Hits or Viva Latino or any of those. But if people don't come and follow you on your profile and you don't get the listeners, that's going to be a short-term success. The playlist is going to give you a quick impact, but you need to be able to convert a lot of those people that listen to it, to come and become fans of the band. So engagement. That's the way.
Hey, insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured conversation. Stay tuned because we've got so much value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Eric, as an artist, what do you find are the most challenging aspects to a music career, especially when you're starting out?
Well, I think one of the first things is just trying to get the direction of who you are as an artist, where you want to go, where you want to be. And, we've talked about it on the show a lot. Who is your target audience? Who you are? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What do you think would resonate with an audience? And so those are some of the things that I would feel being a new artist. Obviously, what I know now is different because I know these things. But for people that are out there like our audience that don't have necessarily any direction to go would be the first things that I would start off with.
And having the songs that
Absolutely.
incorporate those elements that you're speaking of into it. That's so important today.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we started MUBUTV and why we started this new consulting service that we're offering to all of our insiders out there, because that is another one of the big things. I mean, that is the big thing, is like having the great songs. That's what it really starts off. Our friend Don Grierson always said, it always starts with a great song. So that's probably, besides putting together what your audience and what your target audience is the single most important thing. Where are your songs at currently today? Are you collaborating with people? Are you trying to go out to networking events where you can connect with other songwriters and stuff like that? So
yeah, and what are your strengths?
Exactly.
Are you a strong lyric writer? Are you a strong melody writer? Are you a strong musician, a player?
Right.
And it's really important to get really strong clarity on those issues before proceeding.
I totally agree, Rich. And, with our consulting services, we offer a myriad of different packages, and we've made it super affordable for everybody. So, if you guys are interested out there in connecting with us on a coaching call, you can visit book.mubutv.com and start off with a free 15-minute discovery call.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There we start with an initial 15-minute call where we can get a sense of who you are, what are the issues that you specifically have and want to work on.
Exactly.
And we can go from there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we tailor everything to your needs. It's not like a cookie cutter thing. We kind of really want to get to know who you are as an artist, where you at today, what's the snapshot of you as an artist today, and then start trying to craft something that's tailor-made for you. So again, if you're interested, visit us at book.mubutv.com for your 15-minute discovery call.
Hi, this is Mike Jones, manager of Creative Sync at Extreme Music. Are you an insider? I am. Subscribe now.
Yeah, otherwise it just becomes an event rather than the follow-through of the engagement. Correct. Engagement is far different than an event.
Correct.
Like a spike. I wanted to ask you about what Chartmetric is seeing around the world. What markets are starting to emerge that we should be paying attention to?
Oh, yes. So, I mean, Latin music is blowing up, but there was a lot of reggaeton. Puerto Rico somehow, even though it's a tiny, tiny place on the map, had some amazing success on a global scale with Bad Bunny, many other artists. I was in Mexico last month. I was blown away how many new artists are developing on many different subgenres. Brazil is blowing up. If you take YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, besides the US, Brazil is the number one market for audience. Yes, it's kind of a secular market, but I think we're going to start seeing some exports from there too. India is blowing up. That's going to be a big next thing. And Japan, I think, is following suit of Korea and K-pop. So you're going to see a lot of J-pop coming out next as well. We're probably going to have success stories from many other places, but this is what I kind of saw as kind of popping out in the near future when it comes to successes.
Andreas, throughout your life, are there any books, films, or documentaries that you found to be particularly inspirational to you, professionally speaking, that you could recommend to our listeners?
Did you say music? Music is my passion. I do watch movies. I read books a lot. I have a business marketing background, so I try to read a lot of business books, biographies, and some of them speak to me depending on what I'm facing, so it depends on where I come from, but I have to be honest, music is what really gets me. I go in, and if you want to know anything specifics, I have an older cousin that got me into music, and he taught me bands from Pink Floyd, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, the classics, The Doors, and if I really want to get in the right zone, I'm going to go back to those myself. So hopefully this gives you the answer you wanted, but yeah, it's all about music for me. So
yeah.
Andreas, what advice do you have for artists who are committed to building a professional career in music today?
Yes, great question. Maybe one of the key questions of the day. And it's the same for record labels, not just artists, managers, agents as well. How do you develop and break new talent nowadays? The one thing you have to realize, back in the day, the barriers were a lot higher. You had to sign to a label to get an advance. You have to be able to afford going to the studio. You had to be able to manufacture CDs or vinyl, get it into the record stores, be able to afford going on tour, get to radio, MTV, make a very expensive video. Now that's not the case. If you have a laptop, you can make music and you can distribute it yourself. So that part, it's gotten a lot easier. It's getting people to listen to you. That's
getting attention.
Getting attention. And once you get attention, how do you make them fans to stay with you and develop and be fans for your career? So that's always the key element. So it's going to go back to social media. Build your own one-to-one audience. Instagram, TikTok, whatever works. Doesn't matter. It can be YouTube Shorts. Find what works for you. Find who your audience is and just keep building with that. Once you build an audience, then it's going to get easier to release music and get support behind it. Some people just release singles and then say, oh, people are going to come and check it out. I'm going to build an audience. Usually, building up the audience allows you to get a lot more traction after that. The other thing we found out, the first step is the most difficult. Once you get traction, once you get some audience, it gets a lot easier to build on that. Plus, as your music grows, you get part of algorithms, you get into more playlists, and things starting to get easier. So the first step is the most difficult. But I do suggest, in addition to try and create the best music you can, also try and build up your audience. Make a big effort to find the fans that are going to like and appreciate and respect you and get behind you and support you all the way.
You know, as you were speaking, it reminded me of a question that I think you know, coming from you and your background would have a lot of very important validity. How many songs, in your experience with Chartmetric, how many songs does it take for a new artist to gain any kind of visibility or traction in terms of building an audience? Because it doesn't happen with one or two songs, rarely. So what is the number?
It's a great question. We did a study for how quickly do songs grow, and we found out some songs got to 1 billion in a couple months, 3 months, 4 months. One artist I never heard before, brand new artist, got to 1 billion out of the UK, and I was blown away. How do you get there? Insane traction. In Mexico last month when I was there, there's an artist called Macario Martinez. He was street cleaner and he just released a song on TikTok. He told his story, influencers picked it up, it just blew up. He went from 400 followers on TikTok to 1.4 million in like a span of 1 or 2 weeks. Huge numbers. So it seems that the cycle has gotten faster. So if you rise above the noise, you can get attention. And when I mean noise, there's just so much out there, you know, and it's not just music. I mean, people's, you know, attention can be many different ways. It can be music, it can be video games, it can be, you know, sports. There's many things that compete for someone's attention span nowadays. Music is just one of them. But music is more immersive and it can be part of other areas. You can be playing a video game and there's music in the background. So let's say, so there's more ways for music to get around. I would say it's not about albums. I'm glad you said songs. So it's about songs, releases. I would say still a long-term process, and it takes time to build your audience on social media platforms. I don't know the magic number, but the more you keep releasing quality music, and it has to be on a consistent basis. You cannot just do like one single a year. That's not enough anymore. You have to do it more frequent. Maybe not daily, but more frequent as well. And every time you build your audience, and you put your efforts behind it to hit that audience with a new release and just keep building up, even if it's gradual, slightly organically, you know, and it keeps growing, within a year or two, you can have that compounding effect and you're going to see huge, massive impact, you know, after all the hard work. I don't know. I would say a year or two is probably going to take the right time, but you do need to just keep working each time to just say, okay, now I need to go to the next level, and then to the next level, and then it just staggers and it grows up.
Andreas, what's the best way to contact you? Is it through the website? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, for the company, it's easy, chartmetric.com. I always post my email every time I do a conference and a presentation. It's andreas@chartmetric.com. Very easy email. People can reach out to me, and I'm just going to either help respond to them, or I'm going to forward it to the right person, the right department to get back to them right away. But please, I want to hear your stories. I want to hear your challenges. I want to hear what you have. And I also, if you come across an amazing artist, please send them to me. I'm always about discovering new artists.
Okay. Andreas, we want to thank you so much for coming by and doing this. We really appreciate it. It's been an insightful and informative conversation.
I enjoyed it a lot as well. You guys have some great questions. Very excited, and all the best with everything.
Thank you so much. Eric, I am so glad that we had a chance to have this conversation with Andreas. This was a really interesting, informative, and insightful look into not only data, but the role that it plays in artists' careers today.
Yeah.
That's what the interesting part was. So many interesting aspects were covered in this conversation with Andreas. The way he talked about global markets, the way he talked about, you know, I love that story about the usage of data and how it got that artist from overseas a visa to go to South by Southwest after South by Southwest had rejected him, saying there's no market for him here. And they proved that there was based on the data. But, you know, one of the things that I thought was most interesting, because this goes directly to the heart of our listeners, which is you, ladies and gentlemen, our insiders, is when he spoke about the importance of consistent releases, that it's not so much about making an album and putting it out. It's about putting consistent
the cumulative effect of it.
Exactly. Having, and what that translates to is building a relationship with your audience. The consistent element. And it doesn't mean putting out a piece of music every 2 weeks. It means, every 2 months or 3 months or whatever it is that you establish. But he spoke about the importance of that. And that's a consciousness shift.
Right.
Much in the same way that, we went from a copy model of, we would put a song out, it would be played on the radio,
right.
and then we would go buy the body of work based on that song. We would buy an
to
album.
an access model where now you could just pick and choose what you want to listen to.
And we don't need
consume.
to buy anything.
Exactly.
So that's and it has changed the philosophy, and it's changed the release schedules, and it's no longer about this is my single, oh that failed, and now oh my God, what am I going to do? No, you just put the next song, the next song, and you're finding more and more labels are also doing many more singles deals. I thought that was one of the more interesting aspects for our audience that I picked up on in this conversation.
Yeah, one of the other areas, Ritch, too, that I thought, which is another big one that we talked about, was social media's growing importance. And I quote what he said, Andreas, that social media is a key nowadays for artist development, more so than he believes any other time of promotion. Now you can release a single, especially if you're Bruno Mars, and within 90 days you have 1 billion streams. I mean, that's just unheard of. Why? Building your base, your audience, social media, building up your audience now via social media, it's the way for an artist to develop long-term successful campaign. And, he says there's no other way to do that because you have a one-to-one interaction with your base, which is what you and I, Ritch, have talked of right now. I always come to that analogy that I bring that you're like running for president, you're running for office, you're shaking those people's hands, you're kissing those babies. It's a one-on-one thing. It's a battle of attrition that you're just winning one person over at a time. But now with social media leveling that playing field, and I think we talked about it in another recent interview that we did with one of our guests at Muse Expo, where we talked about how the whole idea, I think it was Mark Sutherland, where we talked about the whole idea about how the publicist has become now less of a factor because now with social media, you can be instantaneously out there and reach your audience immediately. I have a new single. I have a new idea. What do you guys think? You're getting an immediate answer. And so I think that's become part and parcel of what's going on now and why your social media strategy, Insiders, is such an important thing.
I could not agree with you more. And what's so important about what you're saying, Eric, is you're talking about the whole element of why it is so important to develop a relationship with an audience. And that doesn't mean using social media of here's my new single.
Right.
Here's my new single.
It can't be pushing something. It's got to be deeper than that. And every once in a while, then you hit them up. There's a great book by this gentleman, Gary Vaynerchuk, Hook, Punch, that if anybody out there is listening can get that book. It talks about that whole idea that you should be giving, and maybe on the 8th or 9th jab or hook, then you're giving them what you want to give out to them in terms of what you're promoting. But it's more about giving, and then taking with a punch. So it's a very interesting concept that I think people fail to realize when they're dealing with their social media strategy.
Absolutely. And the final thing I want to recognize too is, what you were saying before, which is so important. You used Bruno Mars as the example,
right?
Who's one of the biggest stars in the world. What's most fascinating about what you're saying, he not only uses that strategy successfully, but for anybody who's paying attention, Bruno Mars himself has not released a solo album in, I believe it's 8 years.
8 years or longer.
He did the Silk thing with
Silk Sonic with
Silk Sonic, and he's done the singles with Lady
with
Gaga and with Rosé.
Right.
But a Bruno Mars out
because that's the world that we're living in now.
Exactly.
It's a much more singles driven. It's back to like it was in the 50s and 60s where there were bands and artists, everything is secular. And I don't know if we come back to the album as a piece of, I personally love the idea of the album, but I see the value in releasing, and that's why I told you with my strategy, with what I'm doing with the single that I released recently, I want this to be like one piece of art. This is the art that I'm taking out to the world, and I want to push it as much as I can and try to give it as much life and love as possible. Then I'll go to the next one, and then it's the next thing again. It's like you almost have another chance at bat. Like when you're playing baseball, you have another chance of hitting that 400, which remember we talked about with Pete Gambard, where he talked about that whole concept of the baseball and how many at bats, and if you're batting a 400, you're still wrong, 4 or 5% of the time or whatever his formula was.
Right, batting a 300,
you're still striking out 5 or 6 times. So it's just a real interesting concept, but it just goes back to the the point of what you're saying about how valuable your social media strategy, and really just not just saying about me. It's got to be about the audience and developing that relationship.
And they can hear and feel that relationship in a very authentic way, far more so today than ever before. They know inauthenticity when it hits them. So you've got to be authentic in your relationship with your audience. That is absolutely crucial.
Hey, Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes and our space. You can also find us at social media at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Music Business Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.